Adana was a young woman who lived in a small town where everyone knew each other's stories. She was admired for her beauty and respected for her gentle nature. Many men had asked for her hand in marriage, some of them rich traders, others strong farmers with land and cattle. Her relatives often told her she had many options and that she should choose someone who would give her wealth and comfort. But Adana's heart did not follow the path that others had drawn for her. She made a choice that shocked the town. She chose Chaik. Chaik was a man who lived in a wheelchair. He had been this way for many years after an accident, and people believed his life was broken. He did not own a fine house or land, and he lived simply. The villagers whispered about him often. They said he was poor, helpless, and not fit for marriage. But Adana saw something beyond his wheelchair. She saw the way he spoke gently to children in the streets, how he listened with patience to elders, and how his eyes carried both pain and wisdom. Where others saw weakness, she saw strength. When Adana told her family that she had chosen Chaik, their reaction was filled with anger and disbelief. Her aunt shouted, "Adana, have you lost your mind? Many men are waiting for you, men with wealth, men with health, men who can carry you into a life of comfort. And yet you choose this man in a wheelchair? Do you want to bury your life before it even begins?" Her cousins laughed cruelly, calling her foolish. Even her own brothers mocked her decision. They warned her that she would suffer and live in shame. But Adana held her ground quietly. Her voice was soft but firm when she said, "I do not want riches without peace. I want a man whose heart is true. Chaik may not walk, but his soul walks stronger than many men I know." When news of their engagement spread through the town, people laughed openly in the marketplace. Women who sold fruits and vegetables whispered loudly as she passed, "That girl is throwing her life away. She could have been a queen, but now she chooses to serve a cripple." Men at the palm wine stall joked about how she would now push her husband's wheelchair instead of being carried in comfort. Even the children repeated the cruel words they heard from their parents. Adana walked through the streets with her head high, but inside her heart ached. Chaik noticed the scorn too. He had heard the laughter, the whispers, the disbelief. He looked at Adana one evening as the sun dipped low and asked, "Why do you choose me, when you could live in comfort with another? Why carry the burden of people's laughter?" His voice trembled with both gratitude and doubt. Adana held his hand gently and answered, "I did not choose comfort. I chose love. I see you for who you are, Chaik, not for what you cannot do. The world may laugh, but I know my path." Their wedding day was simple. There were no rich clothes or golden decorations. The drums played softly, and only a few true friends came to witness. Many people stayed away, saying they did not want to watch a foolish girl ruin her life. Even some family members refused to attend. Yet as Adana stood beside Chaik, her heart was steady. She did not see the empty chairs. She saw only the man beside her, the one who had captured her heart not with riches, but with his quiet strength. After the ceremony, as they walked, or rather, as Adana gently pushed Chaik's wheelchair, through the narrow path back to his small home, voices rose from the corners. Some clapped mockingly, others laughed outright. A woman shouted, "Let us see how long her love will last when hunger comes." A man added with a grin, "She will regret this before the moon changes." Adana felt each word like a thorn in her skin, but she held on tighter to the handles of the chair. Chaik whispered to her, "Do not let their laughter break you." At night, when the house grew quiet, Adana thought of the life ahead. She knew the road would not be easy. She would face hunger, mockery, and hardship. But when she looked at Chaik, she felt something rare, peace. She remembered the way his words calmed her heart, how his eyes held truth, and how his presence gave her a sense of purpose. She realized that love was not about how much wealth a man had or how strong his body was. Love was about how safe the heart felt when it was near another. Still, the weight of gossip was heavy. Her relatives continued to speak behind her back. Her aunt went around telling people, "Wait and see. She will come running back to us crying, begging for a better life. No woman can survive on love alone." Her cousins giggled whenever they passed her, and her brothers shook their heads as though she had committed the greatest mistake. Adana learned to ignore them. She kept herself busy, caring for Chaik, cooking meals, cleaning their home, and listening to his stories. One evening, as they sat under the moonlight, Chaik told her, "The world is quick to laugh at what it does not understand. But time will reveal the truth of every choice. You have chosen me when no one else would. For that, Adana, I will treasure you for the rest of my life." His words filled her with warmth. She knew their path would be long and full of challenges, but she also knew she had chosen a man who valued her heart more than anything else. In the eyes of the town, Adana was a fool who had married a poor crippled man. But in her heart, she believed she was the luckiest woman alive. For she had found something deeper than wealth and stronger than strength. She had found love that could not be shaken by laughter. And though the people mocked her now, she sensed that one day the truth of her choice would shine brighter than their scorn. Adana's new life with Chaik was not easy. Their house was small, made of old wood and mud walls, with a roof that sometimes leaked when the rains came. Inside, there were only a few chairs, a table that looked as if it had survived many years, and a thin mattress they shared. When Adana first entered that house as a new bride, she looked around and felt the weight of what she had chosen. It was nothing like the fine homes her relatives lived in. Yet, when Chaik smiled at her and said, "This may be small, but it will be filled with our joy," she knew she could make it a home. Each morning, Adana woke before sunrise. She cooked simple meals of yam or maize, swept the floor, and then prepared to go to the market. There, she sold vegetables and palm oil, hoping to earn enough money to feed them both. The market was busy and noisy, full of women calling out prices and children running about. But behind the noise, Adana always heard the whispers. Women shook their heads as they watched her arrange her goods. "That poor girl," one would say. "She threw her beauty away." Another would laugh, "She is now a servant to a man who cannot even walk." Some of them pretended to pity her, but their eyes were full of mockery. It hurt Adana, though she tried to hide it. Sometimes, as she walked home carrying the little food she bought, her heart felt heavy. She wondered if she had made a mistake. Her relatives' words echoed in her mind, reminding her that she could have married a richer man. But when she returned to their small home, Chaik's presence calmed her. He never raised his voice, never spoke harshly. Instead, he would look at her with gentle eyes and say, "Do not let their laughter fill your heart. What we have is stronger than their words." Chaik, though living in a wheelchair, found ways to encourage her. He often sat outside their home, speaking with the children who passed by. They loved listening to his stories about wisdom, honesty, and courage. Adana noticed how the children respected him, how they smiled when he spoke, and how their eyes shone with admiration. In those moments, she realized that her husband had something no wealth could buy, a heart that gave hope to others. Yet, poverty was still real. There were days when Adana returned from the market with almost nothing. The little she earned was spent quickly on food, soap, and small needs. Sometimes they ate only once a day. On those nights, she wept quietly, believing Chaik was asleep. But he would often reach for her hand in the darkness and whisper, "Adana, riches come and go, but love stays. Do not cry. We will see better days." His calm strength carried her through the hardest times. The people in the town did not stop mocking her. Some women made cruel jokes, saying, "Her beauty is wasted on a cripple." Men would laugh and ask loudly, "How does it feel to be the wife of a beggar?" But Adana learned to walk past them with her head high. She stopped answering their words and instead focused on her small business and her home. Inside her heart, she began to find peace, not because life was easy, but because she was no longer afraid of shame. As the weeks passed, she discovered more of Chaik's hidden strength. He could not walk, but he worked with his hands. He repaired broken baskets, carved small wooden tools, and even wrote letters for neighbors who could not read. People began to bring him small tasks, paying him a little for his help. Adana saw how he never complained about his wheelchair, never allowed his condition to stop him from being useful. This gave her courage. She started working harder at the market, and together, they managed to live. One evening, after a long day, Adana sat with Chaik outside their home. The stars were bright, and the cool wind brushed against their faces. She looked at him and asked softly, "Do you ever wish you had chosen another life? That maybe you had married a woman from a rich family who would not suffer like me?" Chaik smiled and shook his head. "Adana, I do not measure life by wealth. I measure it by peace. And with you, I have peace." His words filled her heart with warmth. For the first time since their marriage, she truly felt she had made the right choice. Their love grew stronger, even in hardship. Each challenge they faced together became a bond that tied them closer. Adana no longer cried at night. Instead, she began to dream. She dreamed of building a better life with Chaik, even if it meant starting small. She planted a little garden near their home. She began saving a few coins from her sales. And every night, when she lay beside Chaik, she thanked God silently for giving her a man who loved her beyond what the world could see. Still, the laughter of others never fully disappeared. When she visited her relatives, they mocked her openly. Her aunt sneered, "So, how is life with your beggar husband? Do you not regret it now?" Adana would smile quietly and answer, No, I do not regret it. Her aunt shook her head, believing she was lying. But Adana knew the truth. She had found something her relatives could never understand. Life was hard, yes, but there was joy in the small moments. Joy when Chaik told her stories under the moon. Joy when they shared a meal, even if it was little. Joy when he encouraged her after a long day at the market. And joy when he looked at her with love, as though she was the only woman in the world. The world around them laughed. But inside their little home, they found peace. And slowly, Adana began to believe that the struggles they faced were not the end of their story, but the beginning of something greater. She did not know what the future would bring. But she knew this: their love was stronger than mockery, and their bond was richer than gold. Days rolled into weeks, and weeks into months, and life for Adana and Chaik followed a quiet rhythm. She went to the market each morning, selling vegetables and palm oil, while he stayed home, working with his hands or reading the few books he kept hidden in an old wooden chest. Yet, as the days passed, Adana began to notice things that did not fit the life of a poor man in a wheelchair. At first, it was the visitors. Late at night, when most villagers were asleep, she would hear a knock on their small door. Men in neat suits would step inside. They looked nothing like villagers. Their clothes were sharp, their shoes polished, and their manner calm but serious. They would sit with Chaik for hours, speaking in low tones she could not understand. She tried to listen sometimes, pressing her ear against the thin wall, but the words were too soft. In the morning, when she asked who they were, he would only smile and say, "Friends who trust me." Then came the letters. Unlike the rough pieces of paper that villagers used, these letters were sealed with wax and carried special markings. They looked official, important. Sometimes Chaik read them quietly, then burned them in the fire. Other times, he folded them neatly and placed them in his wooden chest. When Adana asked what the letters meant, he would look at her with gentle eyes and say the same thing: "One day, you will understand." The villagers, however, had their own thoughts. News traveled quickly in the town. People whispered, laughed, and made cruel jokes. "Look at the cripple, pretending to be important," they said. "What business does a poor man in a wheelchair have with men in fine suits?" Women in the market laughed louder than ever when Adana walked past. "Perhaps her husband is writing to the king," one mocked. "Or maybe he is sending love letters to the moon." The laughter burned her ears, but she kept walking. Despite the mockery, Adana's heart told her something different. She believed her husband carried a secret, one too heavy for him to share just yet. His calmness, his quiet strength, and the respect those men in suits showed him were signs that Chaik was not who the villagers thought he was. She trusted him, even when she had no answers. Still, doubt sometimes crept into her heart at night. As she lay beside him, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing, she would wonder, who is my husband really? He was poor in the eyes of the world, yet he spoke with wisdom and carried himself like a man used to honor. He could not walk, yet men who looked powerful bowed their heads when they greeted him. She thought of her stepmother, Mama Dupe, who had forced her into this marriage out of cruelty. Could it be that fate had turned Mama Dupe's wicked plan into a hidden blessing? One evening, the mystery grew deeper. Adana was returning from the market when she saw a black car parked near their small house. It was unlike any car she had ever seen in their poor village. The windows were tinted, the tires shone, and two men stood by the doors wearing dark glasses. Her heart began to race. She hurried inside and found Chaik seated, speaking to a tall man in a suit. The man bowed slightly to Chaik before leaving. "Who was that?" Adana asked, her voice trembling with curiosity. Chaik looked at her with the same calm smile. "Someone who needed advice." "Advice?" she whispered. "But why would such a man come to you?" Chaik reached for her hand and pressed it gently. "Adana, do you trust me?" She nodded slowly. "I trust you." "Then be patient," he said softly. "The time will come when everything will be clear." Her heart wanted to ask more, but she stopped. She had learned that when Chaik chose silence, it was not out of deceit, but out of purpose. So she swallowed her questions and chose faith over doubt. Yet, the villagers did not stop mocking them. The more mysterious Chaik's life appeared, the louder their laughter grew. Some men at the market sneered at Adana, saying, "Your cripple husband is pretending to be a king now, is he not?" Another shouted, "Perhaps he will buy us all palaces with his wooden chair." Their voices stung, but Adana remembered Chaik's words, "Do not let their laughter fill your heart." So she lifted her head high and walked past them. Over time, Adana began to notice small changes in their life. Chaik started bringing home better food, fresh meat, fish, and even fruits that were not common in their town. Their old roof, which had always leaked, was suddenly repaired. New clothes appeared in their home, soft and neatly sewn. When she asked where these things came from, Chaik only said, "A friend sent them." She did not push further. She knew the truth was close, waiting for its right time. But even in her silence, her heart filled with questions. Who were these friends? Why did powerful men respect her husband? And why did he hide all of this from the villagers? She wondered if one day, the whole world would see the man she saw, the man whose worth was far beyond what eyes could measure. One night, as they sat outside their home, the stars shining brightly above, Adana leaned close to him. "Chaik," she whispered, "the world mocks you, but I know you are more than what they say. I do not need riches. I do not need fine houses. I only need your truth." Chaik looked at her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Adana," he said, "you already have my truth. The rest, you will know soon enough. But remember this, love is the only treasure I wanted, and I found it in you." Her eyes grew wet with tears, but her heart grew calm. She did not know what secret her husband carried, but she knew it was powerful, and it was tied to their destiny. And so, while the villagers laughed and mocked, Adana chose silence and trust. She held her faith tightly, waiting for the day her husband's mystery would unfold. Deep inside, she felt it, the world would soon learn that the poor man in a wheelchair was not who they thought he was. The evening was quiet, with only the soft song of crickets filling the air. The sun had gone down, leaving a golden glow behind the hills. Adana was finishing her chores when she heard Chaik's voice call her name. There was something different in his tone. It was not playful or gentle, but deep and serious. She quickly wiped her hands and went to him. Chaik sat in his wheelchair by the doorway, his eyes fixed on the stars as though he was searching for strength in the sky. When Adana came close, he turned to her. His eyes were calm, but there was weight in them, the kind of weight that comes before a great truth. "Sit with me," he said softly. Adana sat beside him, her heart racing. She had always trusted him, always chosen silence when questions burned in her chest, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt like the answer she had been waiting for. For a moment, Chaik was silent, as if choosing his words carefully. Then he sighed deeply and said, "Adana, you have stood by me through pain, through mockery, and through hunger. You saw a man the world laughed at, yet you gave me respect. Tonight, I must tell you the truth about who I really am." Adana's fingers tightened in her lap. She felt her chest grow heavy. "The truth?" she whispered. "Yes," he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes were tender. "I am not poor, Adana. I have never been poor." Her eyes widened, but she said nothing. She waited, her breath caught between her lips. Chaik continued, "I am the heir of one of the greatest business empires in this land. My father was a wealthy man, and when he passed away, his riches, his companies, and his lands became mine. I am richer than anyone in this town can imagine." The words sank into Adana slowly, like drops of water filling a jar. She shook her head slightly, as if she had misheard him. You are rich?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes," Chaik replied. "But when the accident happened, when I lost the strength of my legs, I also lost trust in people. I wanted to see who would love me for myself, not for what I had. I hid my wealth. I came here, living simply, so that I could find a heart that saw me and not the money. And then, I found you." Adana's lips parted, but no words came. Her hands shook, and tears rolled down her cheeks. She thought of all the nights she had cried because people mocked them, of all the days she had worked hard in the market while others laughed. She thought of her stepmother, who had forced her into this marriage to shame her. And now, here she was, discovering that what she had thought was her curse was, in truth, her blessing. "You knew people would laugh at me," she said softly, her voice breaking. Chaik reached for her hand and held it gently. "Yes. I knew. And yet, you stayed. You stayed when the whole village mocked us. You stayed when life was hard. That is why I chose you, Adana. That is why I tell you the truth now. You have given me the greatest gift, love without condition." Her tears flowed more freely, not from pain but from joy that filled her heart to the brim. She could barely believe what she was hearing. All the times she had doubted, all the moments she had wondered about the letters and the men in suits, it all made sense now. Chaik had been carrying a secret too heavy for her to know until the right moment. Adana bowed her head, her tears dripping onto her dress. "I thought I was cursed," she whispered. "I thought my life was destroyed when I was forced to marry you. But God turned my sorrow into joy. What I thought was shame has become my greatest blessing." Chaik lifted her chin gently so her eyes met his. His own eyes glistened with emotion. "No, Adana," he said softly. "You are the blessing. I did not choose wealth, I did not choose honor, I chose you. And in you, I found more than I ever dreamed of." Adana could not hold her feelings any longer. She leaned forward and hugged him tightly. For a moment, she forgot the wheelchair, forgot the world outside, forgot the laughter of the villagers. In that embrace, she felt the truth of his love, a love that had tested her heart and found it pure. When she pulled back, her face was wet with tears but her eyes shone brightly. "Chaik," she said, her voice firm with love, "I did not marry riches, I did not marry titles, I married you. And if you had remained poor forever, I would still stand beside you." Chaik smiled, his heart swelling with pride and relief. He had carried his secret for so long, but now it was free. He had feared rejection, but instead he found acceptance. He had hoped for love, and now he knew he had it without doubt. The night grew deeper, but their hearts glowed brighter than the stars. For the first time, Adana understood the strange visitors, the sealed letters, the quiet strength her husband carried. He was not the weak, poor man the villagers mocked, he was a man of great power and wealth, yet he had chosen a humble life to test the purity of love. That night, as they sat together, Adana's mind wandered back to the villagers' laughter. She remembered the cruel words, the mocking stares. Soon, she thought, they would see the truth. But her heart whispered something greater. What mattered most was not the revenge, not the surprise of the villagers, but the love she and Chaik had built in secret. Her life had changed. Her story, which had begun with mockery, was now turning into a tale of triumph. She had found not just a husband, but a man who trusted her heart enough to reveal his greatest truth. As the moon rose higher, Chaik whispered, "The time will come when the whole world will know. But tonight, this truth is ours. Hold it in your heart, and let it give you peace." Adana nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. For the first time in many years, her tears were not of sorrow but of joy. She knew now that love was the true treasure, and in Chaik, she had found both love and a blessing greater than she had ever dreamed. The morning the truth spread through the town, the air was heavy with silence. People gathered in small groups, whispering and exchanging looks of shock. The same men and women who had once laughed loudly at Adana now struggled to find their voices. For so long, they had called her foolish, pitied her, and even mocked her openly. But now, their tongues were tied with shame. At the marketplace, where the laughter had once been loudest, there was a strange hush. Traders who had pointed fingers at Adana now lowered their eyes when she passed. Even children, who had repeated their parents' cruel jokes, now stood quietly, sensing the weight of the change. The man they had all called poor and crippled was not just wealthy, but richer than anyone in their town had ever imagined. Mema Nkechi, Adana's aunt, was among those most shaken. She had been one of the loudest voices against the marriage. She had told Adana that she had thrown her life away, that she would suffer forever with a man who had nothing to give. Now, when the truth came out, Mema Nkechi could not even lift her head to meet Adana's eyes. She sat in her compound, muttering to herself, too ashamed to face the woman she had ridiculed. But Adana carried no bitterness. She did not march through the town to boast, nor did she raise her voice in triumph. She walked with grace, her head high, her hand in Chaik's, her heart steady. She remembered the days of tears, the nights of hunger, and the cruel laughter, but she did not let them harden her spirit. Instead, she chose mercy. Chaik was the same. When men who had once mocked him came to apologize, he smiled kindly and said, "Let us build a better tomorrow instead of speaking of yesterday." His words spread like a gentle wind, calming the shame that hung over the people. Not long after, Adana and Chaik began to use their wealth not for themselves alone, but for the whole community. They built a school so that children from poor families could learn without fear of being sent away for lack of fees. The school was painted bright colors, filled with laughter and hope. For many children, it was the first time they held books or wrote their names. They built a hospital too, a place where mothers could bring their sick children and the elderly could find care. No one was turned away, no matter how poor. People from nearby villages began to come, carrying baskets of food as gifts, grateful for the kindness they had never expected. They also built homes for widows and orphans, giving shelter to those who had none. Adana, who had once lived in poverty herself, made sure every room had warmth and comfort. She often visited the houses herself, bringing food and sitting with the women to listen to their struggles. Her presence brought peace, for she did not stand above them, she stood beside them, reminding them that she too had once been mocked and rejected. The town changed. Where there had once been laughter at her expense, there was now respect. People whispered her name with awe, not mockery. They said, "Adana, the girl they called foolish, has become a light for us all." Children sang songs about her, calling her the mother of hope. One day, as she stood on the steps of the school they had built, Adana looked at the children running and laughing, their faces full of joy. Chaik was beside her, his hand resting gently in hers. She felt tears in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of gratitude. She turned to him and said softly, "I once thought my life was over when they forced me into this marriage. I thought I had no future. But look at us now. What was meant to break me became the doorway to my blessing." Chaik smiled, his eyes filled with love. "It was never the wealth, Adana. It was your heart. You saw me when no one else did. And because of that, we can stand here today." Adana leaned her head against his shoulder. She thought of Memankechi and the others who had mocked her, but instead of anger, she felt peace. They had laughed, but their laughter had not broken her. It had shaped her into someone stronger, someone who now carried not just her own hope, but hope for many others. As the years passed, Adana's name became known beyond the town. People traveled from far places to hear her speak, not because she was the wife of a rich man, but because her life was proof that true love and kindness could turn pain into glory. She became a voice for the poor, a friend to the weak, and a mother to the orphans. And through it all, she never forgot the beginning, the small old house, the laughter of the villagers, the strength of her husband's gentle words. Those memories were her roots, and they reminded her of how far she had come. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with orange and gold, Adana stood with Chaik outside their home. The air was calm, the world at peace. She looked at him with a smile and said, "True love is the richest treasure of all." Chaik took her hand and held it close. "And I found mine in you." Together, they stood in silence, their hearts full. The town that once mocked them now honored them, and the world they had built was proof that love, when true, is stronger than laughter, stronger than pain, and richer than gold.